Why does our society so often associate having a good time with drinking? Our next guest, Perry Cross, a very familiar face in the desert, discovered years ago that his best times and happiest memories were all without alcohol. He continues to show up every day, and that has made all the difference.
Well, I was originally in New York for many years, working at NBC primarily, on The Tonight Show and on other shows on that network. And I realized that in the early 60s that the business had pretty much moved out here to Los Angeles. That most of the shows originated here. NBC had a huge studio out in Burbank. All the shows were coming out of there.
Right.
I knew a lot of people at NBC because I was brought up at NBC and started there as a page boy. And
what is a page boy?
Well, a page boy is like an usher who's
Okay.
he wears a uniform with a little whistle.
Yeah.
And he looks like he belongs to the movie directing seats, but he actually does lots of things. He stays outside of studios and directs audiences in and out, and also takes tours around the NBC studios.
That's actually a pretty big job.
Well, yeah, that was my first job when I was a young man. I started as a page boy there and took tours around the television studios.
Okay, so that was in New York, though.
Yeah, in New York.
When you moved to LA, what was the craziest thing that you got sucked into?
That I got sucked into?
Yeah, I mean, the lifestyle, everything. I know it gets crazy.
Well, in New York, if you're working in the television, you're pretty much tied up with what you're working on, and then you go home. If you lived in Manhattan, you take a taxi home.
Right.
If you lived and commuted, you took your car or train home like I did, and you go home. But in Los Angeles, when you finish, everybody goes out to a bar.
Wow.
Or across the street to have a drink, or
to wind down.
It seems that everybody wanted to have a drink sometime, and they didn't drink during the work hours, so and they went out. Well, what happened was that a lot of times I started drinking in bars and forgot to go home.
Oh, no.
And that's not good for a marriage.
No, normally wives don't like that.
No, especially mine. And so partying became a part of the family that you worked on. If you worked on a series or a show or specials, you became very attached to your staff. And, if you're the producer, you're like the papa. And,
and you got to take care of your kids.
And so you do a lot of, going out to lunch and having a couple of drinks at lunch. And
then that rolls into the night.
A little before you know it, I didn't realize, though, at the time that I was allergic to alcohol.
Right.
And
That's
the more I drank,
allergy,
the more
too.
I wanted to drink. And
Yes.
but that comes with running around and not realizing that you got to be careful, because alcohol is a dangerous thing for somebody that's allergic to alcohol.
It's a drug, too.
It's a drug.
And it's a legal drug, but it's a drug.
Yeah, that was my favorite drug, alcohol. My father used to be in the whiskey business. He worked for the Jim Beam Corporation, so he used to bring home lots of booze to the house. So I got started with that as a young man. And I didn't realize that the alcohol was starting to control me rather than me controlling the alcohol.
Well, it escalates pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to look at alcohol when, like, normal people are out partying. It's hard to look at it like it's something that's bad for you when everybody around me's doing it.
Yeah, but everybody around me wasn't drunk.
Right.
When most of the time, if I drank, I got drunk. A lot of people drink and they say, "Whoops, I better stop now."
Yeah.
I'm beginning to feel woozy.
Well, I don't have an off button, so I understand completely.
Anyway, this is not a discussion about alcoholism anyway.
No, but how did you turn around? What happened that made you want to stop drinking?
Well, what happened was one night I came home from a party, and I had an accident at home. I smashed my head into a piece of furniture.
Oh,
I was
no.
struggling around, cut my head open, and we had to call the ambulance and the police, and they were sewing me up, and my wife called somebody from a recovery program, and he came in and visited with me the next morning and had a long talk about the fact that he had recovered from alcoholism and that maybe I had a problem and maybe I'd like to find out how he did it and meet some of the people that helped him.
At that point, did you know anything about recovery? Did you know that people suffered from drinking too much or having the allergy?
No, when you're a drinker like that, you're not cognizant of other people's
Right.
knowledge. At that point, I made a decision that if that's the way I was going to wind up in my life with children and a wife and a career, and at that point my career was declining because people in the business knew that I was a heavy drinker and that I was a problem drinker, and so the problem drinker is the last one to admit it to himself.
Of course, always.
So. Thank God, though, I went to a recovery program
and you cleaned
got
up.
sober and I cleaned up, and I've been sober 41 years.
Oh my God, that's amazing! Congratulations.
Yeah, I don't miss it at all.
No, I mean, what's to miss?
Well,
You can party sober in like such fun ways.
Yeah, I like to see what's going on.
I do too. I like to remember it too.
So that was my turning point that night when I had that accident. I just said, "This is ridiculous."
Yeah.
And
You
I
hurt yourself.
And the man showed up. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have thought about recovery.
All it takes is one person to affect our lives.
Exactly.
And change it around completely.
Yeah.
Which is the beautiful thing about turning points and about life. It literally only takes one person.
And it was that person.
Oh, I love that.